now a couple of years. And when I met Brandon, he was really wore a classic bald fade into a pompadour for the longest time. And then, a lot of guys coming out of post-COVID had grown their hair out, and he said, I want to try growing my hair out. The challenge with that is Brandon may have some of the thickest hair I've ever dealt with. His hair is extremely dense and each strand is extremely thick. So the idea of him growing his hair out is a great idea because he has plenty of hair. He can do it, it's not gonna look thin, it's not gonna look straggly, but it's just gonna be overwhelming for him to do day in and day out. And he works lots of hours, so he needs to be able to have something that's easy. So we decided to start working on like an undercut, do a little bit of like a man bun at one point in time. But really until then, we're working in a transition process where we're gonna continue doing a bald fade on him. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work with descending graduation, very short up at the top. Even at my longest point, I'm only gonna be at an open 1, going down into a closed, into a 0. And then we're gonna work into his beard. Brandon does a good job of trimming up his beard on his own, but I'm gonna do a little bit of cleaning up around the mustache area. I'll line him up, make sure this all looks really nice and truly like properly barbered. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna switch into the scissors and cut the top. I'll cut the top, most of it wet. Then when it's dry, you're gonna see me do a good bit of texturizing once it's dry, because we do wanna remove some weight. We do wanna make that hair move. So I am gonna go ahead and I'm going to do some texturizing to him with a couple of different techniques that I think you'll like. So the way I'm gonna start this off is I'm gonna start off with the fade. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab my clippers. I had originally thought I was gonna do a 2, but looking at his hair, I know I'm gonna do a 1. I'm gonna open this up all the way. So basically I'm at what would be considered a 1.5, or basically, it's probably 3/8 of an inch. So what I'm doing here is I'm gonna set in my graduation line. Got my section on top clipped away. I'm coming up, just taking all of this hair away. Now, when I set in my graduation line or the top of my fade, you can see I'm not flicking out. I'm letting the natural roundness of the parietal ridge create that graduation. So I'm just coming up and out. So the way I like to explain this to my students is it's almost like I'm just lifting with my shoulder as opposed to lifting with my wrist. So when I go to blend in some fading, I will do more flicking, but as I'm setting in that graduation line, I'm just coming up and out. Just going completely vertical. The only flicking I'm doing is just to get rid of extra hair so it's not sitting on the clipper. I kind of go back and forth, rock through it, make sure I'm catching all of those hairs. And I work from one side to the opposite, and then I'll come back to the opposite. If I was setting in a more detailed fade, I would only work to the mastoid area, do the opposite side, and then do the back. But because I'm only working from basically a low guard down, I don't necessarily need to make it that intricate when it comes to I don't have to pre-section my fading. And you can see I'm knocking out most of this hair pretty quickly. And then take that comb, spin Brandon around. I'm gonna do the same thing on the opposite side. Comb the hair down, then comb up. Make sure I keep all of that top sectioned away. Now, Brandon has a lot of hair. So what I've done is I've actually kind of pre-set his hair by using a bit of Aveda products. Here at Van Michael Salons, we carry almost exclusively Aveda products. We have a handful of products that we use for treatments that are not Aveda, say like keratin treatments, Magic Sleep, Lichio thermals, but for the most part, we are completely Aveda. And with that said, Aveda just came back out with their Smooth Infusion line that has been completely redesigned. And with that, I used a bit of the Smooth Infusion shampoo and conditioner on his hair, as well as a little bit of the Smooth Infusion Style Prep, just to make his hair feel nice and soft for when I'm cutting with the scissors. I'm not going to make his hair feel real dirty or greasy. I don't want a whole lot of product in the hair. Okay, so from here, I've got my graduation line set in. Just going back over it again. As long as I can feel any crunching, it means I need to keep going. So from here, I'm now going to drop my guard to close. I'm going to work closed to just above the little point, and then I'm going to actually create my bald at the point. So I'm working up. And that's taking it down another 1/16 of an inch, basically. And that's what I do. I'm doing descending graduation on Brandon because it's going to be a small area. There's 3 different types of fading when you go to fade with clippers or with scissors. There's ascending, which would be, say, clipper over comb, or it would be like if you're scissor over combing where you're going from short to long. There's descending, what I'm doing right now. Descending means that I am going from long to short. So I'm starting off at my higher guard and I'm coming back down with my lower guard, just descending down. Then there's also guard skipping. Now guard skipping is a design though, if I was to take Brandon from say like a 1 to a 3, where I would set in a 1, a 2, a 3, then go back down with a 2.5, a 1.5, and then my half to fade out. We don't have enough space to really do guard skipping in this fade, so I prefer on tight, small areas of fading, I prefer to descend. So here's my 1. Now what I'm going to do, take my guard away, and I'm going to set in my bald line. I'm not going to go above the occipital bone. If you go above the occipital bone with a bald line, you're always going to have a line because the head starts to round in and your graduation comes out and you end up with a line. So I never go past the occipital bone with my bald. I'm going to hit from point to occipital bone. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to start coming up. And Brandon, let me know if I dig too hard on you at all, my friend. Now, here's something that when I transitioned into learning barbering as well as learning cosmetology, because I was originally trained as a cosmetologist and then went and got my apprentice license to become a barber. You can do that here in Georgia. When I got into working in a barber shop as well as a hair salon, I found out that when I was in a salon, to me, this was bald. But in a barber shop, you can go multiple levels below that. And what I'm gonna end up doing is balding that out to really tight after we set in his original fade. Once again, I'm going from my point. All the way back to the occipital bone. And this should be very quick. When you're doing an undercut, the fading should be fairly quick. This is one of those if I was in the shop doing Brandon, probably take me about 30 or 40 minutes to do his fade, his haircut, blow dry him, do his beard. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna step around and I'm gonna look at him straight on. Look up for me, my friend. And what you wanna do is you wanna make sure that your points are the same. Because if you were to miss this point and make them uneven, that's no different than cutting a bob that's, you know, a 1/4 inch longer on one side. All right, so I've got his outline or his baseline. I've got his graduation line. I went with a 1 through here. Now I'm through this finger to 1.5 width. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go in and fade that in with a half guard or a blending guard. This is a pair of Babyliss clippers, but they use the traditional wall metal clips. So what I do is I end up taking that. I've got my half guard, which is my 1/2 guard, which is I think like 1.5 millimeters or 1/16 of an inch. These are adjustable, so I do 1 click up. I don't go all the way down, I don't go all the way up, I go just 1 click up. Now here's where I start flicking. So as I come through, if you can see, I'm holding my clippers and just rocking up and out. Stretching the skin just a little bit when I'm on that baseline. Now it's a smaller area here than above the occipital bone, so I'll make a little bit larger of a fade. Basically, we're going to stretch the fade out just a little bit in the back, just because it's more square footage. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to go ahead and ask me. My good friend Andrew right here, he is able to read off any questions you have for me. Go down just a little. And if you see, I'm kind of rocking back and forth. That way I get all those little hairs and I leave it from having any kind of a line. Through here. Now I'm just going to take that off, do 1 click, make sure I don't have any kind of a line going, especially right through here. Brandon's got a pretty strong divot. He's actually one of those guys who's very, structured. He's got a very chiseled physique, chiseled jawline, and his head is no different. So you can see a lot of his skull features because there's not a lot of excess skin. Opening that up a little bit more. All right. Now we're going to go back to the opposite side. Spinning him around, 1 click open. You can see right here is a skull feature. That's why it's so much darker. I'm going to open this up a little bit more, and I'm actually going to stretch and dig just to lighten up the shading. That's the difference between barbering and hair cutting. Traditional hair cutting, you're looking for every hair to be consistent as far as balance, as far as length. In barbering, you're beneath the length where actual balance of length matters. Then what matters more in barbering is the shading is consistent. Because hair cutting is still all based about the same geometry, the same physics. It's all still the same, but at the same time, when you do barbering, you want to take all of those dynamics and all those factors, and then you just adjust them a little bit due to shading as opposed to due to actual length. Right here, same thing is on the opposite side. Just a little skull feature, I'm just stretching. And he's looking pretty good. One thing that I like to do whenever I'm in the shop is I like to use my mirror. That's the whole idea. When I work in the barber shop, I actually work with my client away from the mirror so that I can see better. The mirror will let me know if I've missed anything, which a couple spots I'm seeing that I have a little bit of some shading right here. Nice, it's looking good now. Alright, so from here we're going to line him up a bit. So I'm taking my edgers. These get super tight and super crisp. So I'm going back, getting his line nice and crisp. And I'm gonna work a little bit of a rounded line. And then from here, so I mentioned before when I worked in the salon, I felt like, you know, this was bald. Now I can see that I can go even closer though with other tools. I'm gonna push Brandon's head down just a bit. That tightens this skin so I can really you can see he's got really thick hair. So even though I feel like I'm getting really close and tight, with Brandon, I'll even go a little tighter with the razor once I'm finished. Switch up just a little. The side, we're gonna right from here. We're now gonna work onto Brandon's beard. Actually, so looking at his beard, I feel like this length is all very good. right underneath here, I'm gonna take just a touch off, and I'm gonna strengthen up this line. What I find is with a gentleman's beard, if you go just straight in from the chin and just in through the jawline, you're gonna actually create a much crisper line. It's gonna make the face look much more structured. If you go too low, it almost gives the appearance of a double chin. So just on this corner of each side, I'm gonna tilt Brandon just a little bit like so. Set my comb straight in, just this little bit. My back. Now right through here, I'm going to strengthen up this line. So now that to me looks so much better, but what I will do in just a second is I'll come back through with the razor and even sharpen that up some more. You can see how that immediately made his jaw look a little more structured. Opposite side, we're gonna do the same thing. Tilt away just a touch, set the comb in. This side was actually a little bit longer. And then I'm gonna bring them back and look straight up for me, my friend. Just making sure his line looks as crisp as possible. Not every man is worried about being overly crisp, but when I first met Brandon, he brought in a picture of him getting his hair from where he got his hair cut in South Florida, and his line looked, I mean, like laser sharp. So I knew immediately when I met him where his taste level was. You always want to ask people. One thing I absolutely love it when clients bring in pictures, because talking to him, seeing that picture, it saved me so much effort in trying to consult with him. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come in and just attack his mustache a little bit. What I tend to do with the mustache is I get these hairs out of the lip, and then I just come down on these pieces just so that it doesn't bush out too much. So I start off, you can just relax. Just the outside of my trimmers. Opposite side, outside of my trimmers. Okay, then I take the wide teeth of my comb up, kind of push out, and I just come down. I don't go up against it, it'd take it a little bit too short for me, but coming down just knocks off a little bit of that thickness. Yeah, his beard's looking better already. So now, at this point, I'm finished with my clippers altogether. I'm gonna do one thing with my scissors. I'm gonna go in and just clean up his brows. This is something that, as a man, I absolutely love when people do. I come in, lift out, just take away the long strays. I like to leave him with substantial eyebrows. I don't think he needs to have his eyebrows like taken off, but I do definitely think he wants to lose some of those long curly ones. And he's like me, he gets some of those strays that just kind of grow kind of all over the place. Now I'm going to switch over to another tool. Some people use these, some people don't. I love to use a razor. Now, when I have somebody come into the barber shop, I use a hot lather with this. If somebody comes into the salon for me to do a little lineup, what I like to do is I actually take, this is just rosemary mint shampoo, or I mean conditioner. Oh shit. Sorry, dude.
No, you're good, dude.
I guess I should have checked to see if there was any. There we go.
Hey, you need it there, so.
Yeah, I mean, it did land right where it's supposed to. But I just take that conditioner. It's gonna leave the hair nice and soft. Get some of this hair out of the way. And I'm going to come in at an angle. Coming in at that back angle leaves me from having a true definite line from where I was using the trimmer. So like I said before, you know, in the salon, you know, this was bald. Now I know that there are lower levels of bald in a bald fade once I started working in a barber shop. Nice thing about this is now you can make this line nice and crisp for him. Just a little bit of water. And we'll do the other side. Once again, I'm just taking a little bit of this rosemary mint conditioner. Tilt up just a little bit. On this side, Brandon, you right-handed or left-handed?
Left.
Yeah, I was actually kind of surprised because, so what's happened is when he's been shaving his kind of beard area here with if he's left-handed, he's coming in and it's going straight up and down. On this side, when he's coming, it's been coming out. So I'm gonna strengthen that up just a little bit for him. The other thing that's nice about this rosemary mint is it smells amazing. Tilt you that way, buddy. Nice and crisp. Again, spray just a little bit of water. And then I'm going to do his neck as well. Chin down for me, my friend. This is actually, believe it or not, what I shave with in the shower every day. when I first got into learning how to shave and learning how to barber, I decided I was gonna start shaving my face and neck and shoulders with a straight cutthroat blade, and started using just rosemary mint, just so I felt like I knew exactly what it felt like for my clients when they were coming in. Once again, so I've went rounded with his fade, so I'm gonna round with the bald. Tilt you that way, my friend. And come back the opposite way. And straight down. Beautiful. Just some nice cold water. Looks like I took off a little piece there. All right, look up for me, my friend. All right, so I've got him nice and cleaned up on the underneath. All I'm gonna do now, or what I'm gonna do now, is we're now gonna work into the hair cutting part of this. So as far as the hair cutting is concerned, I've already washed his hair. I put a little bit of some style prep in there. He's got a ton of hair, and we're gonna let that hair continue to grow in length while removing quite a bit of weight, as well as we're gonna get off any of the dead hairs that are in there. So the way I'm gonna start this off is I'm gonna let all of his hair just get combed straight back. And you can kind of see his ends they're a little dry, not too bad. But rather than cutting length first, which would make this a very solid, almost bob-like feel, I'm gonna work internally first. And the way I'm gonna work internally is I'm gonna take a Mohawk section. So from the center back, or from the front hairline to the back, a center section. All the way back. Combing that out of the way. And then I'm gonna cut on top of my knuckles. So what I'm gonna end up doing is I'm gonna work a convex shape. So it's gonna follow the head shape. It's if I was going to collapse it a lot, I would go concave, but I think that would take that too short in the crown. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna pull this hair up off of the head shape. Here's my outline, letting that fall. That's my guide. I'm just cutting up, following the head shape. You can see I'm getting any of those dry pieces off, definitely, while maintaining some length. Now I'm moving into, as I get to the front, more of a triangular shape as I'm gaining length to the front. So if you think about this, I was following the head shape and then just working in to gain length to the front so that it maintains length so that he can continue to pull this hair back. But you can see how I've removed a lot of that weight already. From here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take parallel sections and I'm gonna over direct this all into my center section. So I'm using a stationary guide, pulling this hair back, still cutting on top of my knuckles. As a general rule, I cut palm to palm beneath the parietal ridge, and I cut on top of my knuckles above the parietal ridge. I find it's just the easiest way for me to have a bit of consistent tension. So I'm over directing up and to the center. And then I'm going to take one more section. Keep it just straight. Using the fine teeth of the comb. And I'm never cutting past my second knuckle. My tension once I get past my second knuckle is not consistent, and especially when you're dealing with this much hair and a stationary guide, you want to use the fine teeth of your comb, as well as you want to just cut to your second knuckle. Don't cut past that. Okay, so from here I'm combing this back just to kind of assess my layering. Yeah, it looks like I've removed a lot of that weight from one side to the other. You can see this side's still got a good bit of bulk. So I'm gonna go back to that original section, my center Mohawk section. I'm gonna take everything on the left and push it away. This way I don't grab anything that I've already cut. I'm gonna take my opposite side, the right side, take a vertical section from the front hairline back, completely parallel to what I've been working with. Pulling up and over directing right into that center. And I'm using fairly small scissors. These are Van Michael shears, actually, that Hairbrained is now selling exclusively through their store. They're 5 1/4 inch, just classic straight hair cutting shears. And I like to use these smaller shears because I don't need to cut past my second knuckle. Whenever I use larger shears, I tend to cut past my second knuckle. So in this case, all I'm doing is using a small shear so that I don't take a chance of cutting past my second knuckle. I don't want to have inconsistent tension, especially with a stationary guide. I remember my boss Van telling me how, you know, in theory, if you have really strong fingers and really sharp scissors, man, you can do a whole panel in one snip. But the key to that is making sure that you have extremely consistent tension. Nice. Okay, so now let both sides down. Just assess what we're working with. Yeah, much more balance. And throughout the shape, what I'll do is I'll pull out to just check for balance. Yeah. Just kind of randomly, because it should all be very, very similar and very balanced. If you use really proper tension and you cut real clean, you should have completely balanced from one side to the other. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work horizontally through this shape. I'm gonna take diagonal back sections, comb this hair down, let it kind of fall into natural fall, and see what kind of shape I have. Now, I don't want this to end up looking like a bob. I don't want it to be overly clean. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull this hair out, right off of the parietal ridge, and just strengthen the shape, but pulling it out horizontally so that it does not create a solid line. What I will find is this will probably run out after 2 sections. Again, I'm gonna elevate right off the head. So the actual elevation is just gonna be pulled straight out from the head. So what I'll do is I'll take that previous section, comb up, comb out, and you can see very little is coming off. Comb up, comb out. Comb up, comb out. One of my first art directors was a guy named Gary, and I used to comb and comb and comb, and he used to tell me that I would wear myself out with combing. So what I have tried to do is always make sure that I do make sure all my sectioning is very clean, everything is very precise, but that I'm able to just comb a few times to make things very efficient and smooth, and that I'm not exhausted by the end of a haircut. So comb up, comb out, nothing reaches. Comb up, comb out, maybe right there. Pretty much after your second section, nothing should reach. All right. And we're gonna do the opposite on the left side now. Again, diagonal back section. I'm gonna take this hair straight out, right off of the parietal ridge. Here's my natural elevation of the head. It's just slightly graduated, almost to it's kind of internal graduation, which means that it's up above the occipital bone, and it's almost as high as layering. But what that will do is it will allow us to have some movement while cleaning up the outline and keeps it from being just a solid, say like have a solid bob. Next section, parallel line, bring everything out of the way, and bringing all this, once again, right off the top of the head. Wherever your sectioning is, that's how you find your elevation. This should be the last section that has any hair to cut, and it will be very minimal. Nice. I'm just gonna check past center, but I know it should not reach because I've already cut it this way. Shouldn't make it back the opposite way, especially because that center section was the shortest piece when I was cutting it vertically. Perfect. All right, so now I'm gonna blow dry Brandon. And once it's dry, I'm gonna do just a little bit of texturizing to him. So I've already put a little bit of style prep in his hair. So literally what I'm gonna do is just blast him dry pretty quickly. One thing I find is a lot of times people try to overstyle men's hair. Really, I also find a lot of times people understyle it also. I'm not a big fan of just like putting product in their hair and letting them go. It's really rare you would see me do that. I always like to style their hair, but I also want them to see me do what they're willing to do at home. You know, I know that a lot of times Brandon, because he works long hours, just pulls it up in a bun, but I want him to see what I do as far as if he was going to go out and wear his hair down. And to do that, really all I'm doing is wrapping the hair back and forth very quickly. The big reason I like to wrap it back and forth is it's going to smooth the hair out. It's going to flatten it out somewhat also. I don't want his hair to be too big. You know what I mean? That's one of the things about Brandon's hair is it's so thick, if it's not taken care of properly, it can get extremely big. But by just quickly wrapping back and forth, you see it lays beautifully. Now just leave it away from his face. Really the whole process of blow drying with Brandon is to flatten out the hair as well as to get it to go away from the face. So as I'm leafing everything away from his face, so I don't want it to fall right into his eyes. And I'm just using a classic Best Brush. This is a Best Brush Pro 2000. These you can get on Hairbrained as well. Pretty much everything I use, I get off of Hairbrained, all of my tools. So you can always go to their store. My clips I get off of them, my combs, everything I pretty much get off of Hairbrained. All right, man, looking good. All right, so from here, I'm gonna break out one of my favorite toys. These are Van Michael blending shears. They're called blending shears because they're a blunt blade. See that? I can rub my finger right on this blade and it's not gonna cut. That's a blunt blade. This side, the serrated side, is very sharp. Don't try that on that side. But what it allows me to do is it allows me to do some slicing through the hair without the hair catching. Especially when you're dealing with thick hair. I don't like to blow open the cuticle at all, but I do want to remove a little bit of this weight. So what I'm doing is I cut this shape vertically this way and then horizontally this way. I'm gonna pull up right in between, right off of the head shape. I'm finding my guide or my line that I've created, and I'm just slicing through. You can see I can slice through absolutely effortlessly because this is a blunt blade. It doesn't catch. Both sides don't catch on the hair, therefore it does not tear open the cuticle at all. But it allows me to come through and just remove weight wherever I want it. So I can see that I want to slice through. Take out that weight, lets the hair move. If you hear hair pulling or tearing, that is not comfortable on the client. It's not comfortable on the hair's, the integrity of the hair either. It's just tearing it up. It ends up leaving the hair looking frayed, makes it have split ends. But if you have these kind of blending style shears, you can slice through without tearing open the hair and tearing open the cuticle whatsoever. And these are sold exclusively on Hairbrained's website as well. They're the Van Michael blending shears, blunt blade. One last section on top. It's going to come up now horizontally, up, pulling this up. And now Brandon has a bit of an undercut. One thing I like to use for his texture of hair, this is Aveda's men's grooming cream, or grooming clay, I'm sorry. So fair amount on my fingers, but then I rub it into my hands really good. You can see it's all over my hands, and then I finger it through. I don't use the palms of my hands, I just use the fingers. And finger this through. Okay. I use my wide tooth comb and push this back. Assess my shape in the mirror. There you go. Cool. All right, Brandon. How's it feel, man?
Beautiful.